Diolch I chi gyd a croeso i'r cynhadledd. Good morning to you all and welcome to the conference. Let me start by thanking the conference organisers for all their work in helping to make this conference such a success. It's great to be back in Cardiff for the second time this year, and it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces, not just from Wales, but from all parts of England, as well as friends from Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's wonderful to see so many new faces too. A happy reminder that the Green Party is growing fast and welcoming new members every week. But we're meeting at a time of enormous importance for our country. A time of great uncertainty and fear. A time when the voices of compassion and justice must speak loudly for the most vulnerable in our society. When we last met in the autumn, the Coalition's knife hadn't yet sunk in far. I'm sure you'll agree that people across the UK are now feeling the pain. Up and down the country, we're seeing vital care services for the elderly cut, youth services slashed, support for carers and services for disabled people hacked apart, vital services in council after council butchered by frenzied Coalition ministers. This is not some careful cosmetic operation, not some nip and tuck around the edges. These cuts are chopping off whole limbs from our public services, which millions of people depend on. In my own county of Norfolk, the Conservative-run County Council is axing its entire youth service. And Suffolk, Buckinghamshire and Manchester have the same plans in store. These services help vulnerable young people in need. They provide them specialist advice and support. They boost their skills and confidence. They help young people to find work or further education. And they help them fulfil their potential in life. By reducing crime, unemployment and teenage pregnancies, these services save so much more money than they cost. It makes no sense to cut them. And with so many cuts to youth services, it's little wonder that young people feel under attack. This is the message behind these callous cuts. Vulnerable young people being told that society doesn't care anymore about their troubles, that they're on their own, that their youth centres, their places of refuge closed down, the doors of opportunity slammed in their faces. Of course, it's not just the most vulnerable young people whose future prospects are being curtailed. In the past few months, I've given talks at universities across the country. I've spoken to many students who are struggling to make ends meet and worried about their future. With rising tuition fees, threats to post-16 transport subsidies, the loss of the educational maintenance allowance, the disappearance of graduate jobs, and ever-rising youth unemployment, almost every young person in the country will be affected by these cuts. Young people deserve better than that. They are the future of our society, and we can build stronger communities by supporting them all. And it's not just young people who are feeling the pain. People of all ages will be affected by huge cuts to social services, with the elderly and disabled hit hardest by cuts to care and welfare budgets. Take Kirklees in Yorkshire. The council there is cutting care services by 2/3, affecting thousands of older people, disabled people, and people with learning difficulties. Our Green councillors in Kirklees have campaigned hard against these cuts, but the other parties won't listen. Across the country, local authorities are cutting care budgets, shutting day centres and closing care homes. They're removing support for people with learning difficulties, mental health issues and physical needs. These cuts are morally wrong, but they're also financially short-sighted. Many of these services save more money than they cost by preventing people's health from getting worse. The loss of these care services will place great strain on the NHS and unpaid carers who are already struggling to cope. The Green Party says protect care services. We would provide more support to carers and ensure the vulnerable people in our society are treated with dignity because it's morally and financially the right thing to do. thousands of public sector workers who've dedicated their lives to public service have already lost their jobs, and another 150,000 more job losses are expected this year. Here in Cardiff, 350 council jobs are set to be axed, and almost every council has a similar story to tell. The Tory Lib Dem government is creating mass unemployment. But why? For what great cause are social care, youth services and fire services being sacrificed? For what purpose are hundreds of thousands of people losing their livelihoods? David Cameron says that severe cuts have to be made to get the economy back on track. But destroying jobs and services won't help our economy. As Greens, we know that the government should be investing in a new economy of the future, in the same way that the post-war government, facing an even bigger debt challenge, invested in jobs, the welfare state and the NHS after 1945. Cuts are not the answer. What we should be doing is investing now in lasting jobs in industries we need for the future. We should be investing in renewable energy, public transport and home insulation. And we should be investing in and safeguarding our public services because they are the bedrock of a civilised society. But this isn't the vision of the Tory Lib Dem coalition. If they have a vision at all, it's a cutthroat future of every man or woman for themselves. Do you remember the pre-election slogans? The Tories said, vote for change. And they've certainly delivered on that promise. But it's change for the worse. As for the Lib Dems, they said, change that works for you, building a fairer Britain. Change that works for who? A fairer Britain? Well, we know by now that what the Lib Dems say is not the same as what they do. They will target the financiers who wrought misery on our economy, not target children, the elderly and disabled. If these changes were fair, they would cut bonuses for bankers, not respite care for unpaid carers. They would shut down corporate tax bodies, not care services. The Conservatives say they want to cut waste. But the real waste is the billions of pounds lost through tax dodging that big companies like Vodafone drain from our economy every year. Far from building a fairer Britain, the Lib Dems and Tories are bringing in policy after policy, cut after cut, that widen inequalities in our society, that make the poor even poorer, that make the super rich even richer, and that sweep away the safety net for millions of vulnerable people. Unlike the Lib Dems, or the Labour government that came before, the Green Party stands up for social justice. We've not forgotten the pledge that we made to voters, and we've not forgotten our principles. We still think that fair is worth fighting for. At local rallies, in council chambers, in parliament and assemblies, we haven't forgotten what we're about. We will keep standing up for justice and fairness. Against the onslaught of cuts, Greens across the country are doing all we can to defend crucial frontline services. In Norfolk, the County Council proposed huge cuts to care services. Green Councillor Stephen Little launched a petition to protect these services, and thanks to a strong community campaign, the Council has now backtracked on the most damaging plans. In York, Councillor Andy de Gorn has been fighting proposed cuts to York's children's centres, careers advice, education and youth services. In the London Assembly, Darren Johnson and Jenny Jones presented an alternative budget that would have saved children's centres and school improvement teams by cutting pay for top-earning council staff and using energy efficiency measures. On Oxfordshire County Council, Greens tabled an amendment that would have saved libraries, care services, youth and children's services and a major recycling centre. but the other parties pushed through the cuts. In the Scottish Parliament, Green MSPs fought against £400 million of cuts to public services, including housing, education and energy efficiency. But the Greens were the only party to vote against the budget initially proposed. As Greens, we're the only credible political party standing up for public services, fighting the onslaught of cuts and putting people first. And as Greens, we're thinking about future generations too. And just as that means protecting public services, it also means looking after the planet and its ecosystems. From polar bears struggling against extinction from climate change, to the house sparrows that have disappeared from our back gardens, nature is under threat. Every day species are vanishing from our gardens, from our forests and farmlands, from our seas and rivers, and some are disappearing altogether from our planet. We are in the midst of an extinction of species on a scale not known since the dinosaurs. Governments everywhere are turning a blind eye to this global biodiversity crisis. Conference, there is no other political party that will stand up for wildlife and fight to protect the natural world. It's not just wild animals that need our help. Conditions in many farms are still barbaric. Thank goodness that the plan for a mega dairy in Lincolnshire with 6,000 cows has been withdrawn. This US-style industrial farm would have taken British agriculture even further in the wrong direction. Bad for animal welfare, bad for the environment, and bad for consumers. None of the old three parties will stand up against cruelty and oppose intensive farming and vivisection. The Green Party opposes cruelty wherever we see it. And I'm proud that Green MEPs have worked hard to improve welfare standards for animals in laboratories and farms across Europe. Keep up with this work. But sadly, all three of the old parties have shown us time and time again that they cannot be trusted on green issues. Like those that came before them, the Lib Dems have joined the Tories in their great eco-swindle. David Cameron promised us the greenest government ever, but he's given us the meanest government ever.